Um, and after this happens, and after he's been given access to the royal family so quickly and so readily, there's political intrigue everywhere. No one is happy about him being able to get to the royal family so easily when it comes to being in a seat of power. Every single political figure is upset with him. So, he's accused of being a member of the Kists. I think that's how you pronounce that. Which are basically uh, an occult sect of Christianity that's very concerned with uh, spirituality and believes that they can somehow commune with the spirit of God through a mortal host or something like that. Um, I didn't actually read too much into the Kists, so I don't know specifics on that. I just know that this is where they. Ooh, let's do that. This is like the gist of what they were doing. Um, he's accused of being a part of the sect, uh, and plenty of other things. Honestly, um, even though most of the Russian court were secretly into the occult already, they were looking for anything to get Grigori Rasputin kicked out of any sort of political standings. So they tried to use his connection to defame him in the eyes of the Tsar and the Tsarina. As it turns out, the Tsar and the Tsarina did not care at all what people were saying about him because apparently he is just he is their buddy and they love this guy, which is good for him if nothing else. Um, But yeah, so they're enamored with him, and they're like, no, whatever. And the Tsar publicly refutes any claims that Rasputin is horrible or is aligned with these guys, and also publicly makes known that Rasputin is a good friend of the royal family, and that people just need to leave it alone. Uh, the Tsar in question, Nicholas II, is not remembered as a terribly strong king, so yeah, nobody cares. Um, but whatever, he that's what he attempts to save his buddy. Now, it's at this time, around this time I suppose, that an assassination attempt is done on Grigori Rasputin. We're in Africa, that sucks. Okay, on Grigori Rasputin, a woman who was once a very devout follower of Rasputin's, who venerated his ideals, uh, for some reason or another. Uh, I think the reason that I read was that she thought he had fallen away from his teachings, that he had become like a despoiler of women and da 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 da. Basically, a sinful motherfucker. Um, she dresses up as a beggar and and elicits money from him. And when he's reaching for coins out of his pockets to try to, help her out, to give her some money, she jumps up and shanks him in the gut. Obviously, that's not cool. So, when the attempt was discovered to have been non-fatal, after every physician and the Tsarina's personal physician was called in, uh, after all of this is decided, then this woman is put into an asylum, and cool. This woman is put into an asylum and generally just thrown to the wayside. The There were thoughts that a nobleman was funded, or according to some accounts, a nobleman funded her attempt to assassinate Rasputin, because the noblemen of Russia really don't like Rasputin. Um, this was from the accounts that I read. This was found to be true, but and he was found to be guilty, and they were going to execute, or was it execute? They were going to do something to him, some sort of punishment, but because of some reason or another that's never actually explained, uh, the local procurator, I think is what they were called, after the guilt was determined,
So teach
decided
us
to
to number
cease
our days, so that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom.
decided to cease any sort of action against that man indefinitely. Um, Again, for reasons that are pretty much never spoken of. He just decided. Let's see what's around here first. Mostly plantations. We've already got mining. That's fine. Iron. Let's just build up to... You know what? We're talking about Rasputin. Let's just build up to theology right off the bat. Okay. But yeah, so... He gets away scot-free, never has to worry about anything. It's a little bit after this that an incident called the Yar restaurant incident occurs. Basically, how the setup goes that the head of the police institutes a 24-hour surveillance on Rasputin, trying to defame Rasputin again in the eyes of the royal family, because everyone and their dog is trying to do this at this point. So he sets up this 24-hour surveillance and ends up making a report to the Tsar about how Rasputin was in a restaurant in an area that he's usually not in, and goes in with two journalists, and after he gets incredibly inebriated, whips out his dick and starts flailing it around in front of some gypsies. Now, couple of reasons that this was basically debunked. The first off was the Tsar knew where Rasputin was at the time, and it didn't line up with what the head of police had said. Second off, the head of police didn't have the actual report for the incident. He just had like a thing saying, "Hey, this is a thing I saw happen." So that didn't go over well. Another indictment against this comes from Rasputin's daughter, who basically she spends most of her life talking about her dad, and how all of the bad things that people are talking about are just rude and lies. So she basically mentions that, or she basically says that it's
destroys a good book, kills reason itself.
says that it's false because, first of all, after the assassination attempt, Rasputin was not fond of going out in public in places that he hadn't been to before. Obviously, because of the assassination attempt, he was very jittery. Also, the claim that he was with two journalists was brought into question when she started talking about it, because apparently he generally just didn't like journalists to begin with. So he wouldn't have been out and about with that. All of these pieces of evidence, as well as general just other things, end up convincing the Tsar that the police just don't like Rasputin, along with the rest of everyone else that's of any sort of political stance in Russia. So, he holds his buddy a little bit tighter at that point. However, World War I starts up, as it tends to do, and the Tsar leaves to take personal control of the military on the advisings of the Rasputin and the Tsarina, who were given control of the government in his absence. This is because Russia was an autocracy at the time, and the king could get, or the Tsar / king, whatever you want to call him, could get by with literally whatever he felt like. So, finish that turn. So, while he's gone, Rasputin and the Tsarina are in control, technically, of the entire kingdom, because as the Tsarina is technically in control of the kingdom, and Rasputin is her advisor. Now, this causes a lot of disputes historically. This is another one of those instances where, historical record says, hey, he was a bad dude, this sucked, and he basically took control of the government. Whereas other parts of history, or other documents regarding it, say, no, he wasn't that kind of an asshole. He totally was just working for the people and doing everything he was supposed to, like a good servant of the empire. We don't have documents either way, so we don't know. We have a lot of personal testimony, but that's about it. Nothing hardcore. And all of the personal testimony came from people who just fucking hated Rasputin. I guess there's a little bit of personal testimony from his daughter, but, I mean, she's his daughter, that's suspect already. So, the Tsarina's in control, Rasputin is her advisor. Now, this is another time where the imperial court goes out of their way to try to get Rasputin removed or exiled from the royal family. I don't remember. Why do I not have the specifics of this instance? Weird. Yeah, something occurs. They try to use that against him. The Tsar once again says, "Hey, leave him alone." After several members of the court are removed from office for continuing attempts to defame Rasputin and the Tsarina. The last attempt... oh, wait. I remember why now. Okay, so that attempt was basically because the Tsarina and Rasputin were alone all the time. Somebody was like, hey, they're totally banging. Which, again, we have no documents one way or the other, but personal hearsay, after several of the members of the court are removed from office for continued attempts to defame Rasputin and the Tsarina, Rasputin basically decides that it's probably best if he only attempts to advise the Tsarina by telephone, and generally just not coming to the palace at all, unless Alexei, the boy whose hemophilia he had so previously cured, needed something specific from him. Because he still had hemophilia. This didn't, unfortunately, stop naysayers from basically saying that Rasputin was using the royal court for his own perverted whims. And many of the Russian court actually have left memoirs stating just how awful Rasputin and this German-blooded queen or Tsarina are for the history of Russia. Now, after this incident, after all of this, the relationship with Rasputin is used by dissenters to basically paint the royal family in the light of a fucking idiot. Obviously, this is pretty easy to do because the royal family isn't looked on as terribly competent anyway. As was just previously mentioned in passing, the Tsarina is of German descent, who they are currently at war with. And the current Tsar, Nicholas II, is again not viewed as a terribly competent ruler. He's considered weak and frail.